An attempt to take the life of an iconic legend and destroy his family ignited a defiant spirit that inspired an anthem for unshakable strength and resolve. We tenaciously and proudly stand our ground with the incomparable Tom Petty, next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you have ever sat by the radio, anxiously waiting for your favorite song to come on, calling the station incessantly to request it until it got played, and you did this over and over, you are gonna love this channel. Subscribe below right now, because here you get the inside story of your favorite songs, and most of the time straight from the artists themselves. Hit the bell so you never miss out. As you probably know, we do this daily. And help support our mission of curating rock and pop history by clicking on our Patreon link below. We give you more content as well. By the way, that memory that was shared before, that's from our subscriber Charlie Ann. Share your memories in the comments below and we may just use it. Now, no one worked closer or collaborated longer with the late great Tom Petty than guitarist-composer Mike Campbell. You know, Mike was like a brother to Tom and he knew him like a brother. Since Tom Petty's untimely passing in 2017, Mike is often asked, what was Tom really like? And Mike answers that question by referencing one of Tom's most enduring hits, I Won't Back Down. To Mike, I Won't Back Down described Tom Petty's character perfectly. He wouldn't back down, ever. As Campbell pointed out, Tom never backed down from the man. He stood up to the record companies, to the promoters, to music critics, he even stood up to his own band. And I think that's why we all love Tom Petty and his brilliant music so much. You can feel it in his music. He always stuck up to the bully. As listeners, it felt like he had our backs, and his music, it just gave us the courage to do the same thing. Nobody told Tom Petty what to do. I Won't Back Down was Petty's anthem of resolve, co-written and produced by his friend Jeff Lynne, the great Jeff Lynne, and launched as the first single from Tom's first solo LP, Full Moon Fever. It's a classic if there ever was one. The force behind I Won't Back Down was driven by two very emotional events in Petty's realm, one of which threatened his life and the life of his family. In 1987, it was about a year before Petty wrote the lyrics for I Won't Back Down, Tom and his family, they were eating breakfast inside their home in a wooded area in Encino, California, when an arsonist somehow got into their house and lit the wooden staircase on fire. Now, the house went up like a tinderbox. Nearly everything was lost in that blaze except for the recording studio in the basement. I gotta tell you, Tom and his family and their housekeeper, they escaped the fire, and they spent many months afterward lodging in hotel rooms and rented properties. Although Tom was very grateful that he and his family were alive, the incident, like anyone, it left him traumatized since it was an attempt to harm him and his family. Now, actually, the arsonist was never caught, which shook Petty even more, wondering if the perpetrator would strike again somehow. It may have been a coincidence here, but just 11 days before the arson, Petty won a lawsuit against the B.F. Goodrich Tire Company for $1 million. Goodrich, I guess they wanted to use Tom Petty's song Mary's New Car in a TV commercial. Mary's got a brand new car. And when he wouldn't let them, their advertising agency commissioned a copycat song that the judge felt was plagiarized. As for possible motive, no direct connection was ever proven between the lawsuit and the house fire. The Encino house that Petty owned, it seemed to be cursed. After the house was rebuilt from the devastating fire, Tom's ex-wife Jane got the property in a divorce settlement. However, after some ill-advised financial moves, she declared bankruptcy and found a tenant to pay rent, to help with the payment that was owed to the bank. Now, eventually the tenant was not able to make the monthly payments, and when bank representatives attempted to evict the tenant to foreclose on the property, the guy wouldn't allow anyone in, not even the sheriff. The tenant posted a sign on the front gate of the property, get this, threatening violence, stating that trespassers would be prosecuted and subject to military law. Now, if you can believe this, the police proceeded to storm the property with a SWAT team, helicopters and black vans. The tenant was found hiding in one of the house's many nooks and was taken to jail in handcuffs. It's unbelievable. The other event that deeply affected Tom Petty during that time that helped inspire the song was the troubling strife within the Heartbreakers band. The members of the Heartbreakers, they didn't like anything on Tom's solo album, Full Moon Fever, with the exception of his loyal friend and bandmate Mike Campbell, of course. There was heavy tension between Tom and the Heartbreakers during the making of Full Moon Fever, apparently. Mike Campbell was on board as always, but the idea of Petty doing a solo album without billing with the Heartbreakers, it stirred up controversy with the other band members. And they didn't get the concept, of Jeff Lynne producing either, and they weren't digging the music. It's a real head scratcher to me, one of his best albums. Heartbreaker keyboardist Benmont Tench, for instance, he didn't like Why I Won't Back Down. That's when he first heard it, he didn't like it. Benmont, along with bassist Howie Epstein, they hated playing songs from Full Moon Fever on the subsequent tour. Drummer Stan Lynch said that when they played songs from Full Moon Fever during one of their live gigs, he felt like he was in a cover band. Now, Lynch left the Heartbreakers in 1994 after being with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers for 18 years. Tom Petty, he took the arson attack and he took the shots from his bandmates personally, and that defiance sparked his impulse to write I Won't Back Down. And I won't back down. Petty's mindset was that he will survive, he will move on. Tom Petty had what very few had, the thing that separates the legends from the above average musicians. He took these experiences and created timeless and life-changing music that resonated with all of us. Despite the early disdain for the material, every Heartbreaker except for Stan Lynch ended up performing on the Full Moon Fever album. And by the way, this song breakdown is sponsored by Zenni Eyewear, my choice of frames. If you want to get some stylish frames with awesome benefits for less than the price of a vinyl record, make sure to go to zenni.com. Okay, so the making of I Won't Back Down formulated inside the home studio of Mike Campbell. Jeff Lynne contributed mightily to the creation of the song, especially coming up with the melody under the verses. He invented the track's prominent bass line, very cool bass line. Well, I won't back down. He also provided support vocals on the chorus and the pre-chorus. In addition to Lynne's superstar talents, the song included some magic Beatle dust with, get this, Ringo Starr on the Lynne LM1 drum machine and the great George Harrison on accompanying acoustic guitar and background vocals. Now, this was at the time that Tom was in the Traveling Wilburys, along with the other legends, the aforementioned Harrison, Bob Dylan, Jeff Lynne, and the great Roy Orbison. Oh, I love Roy Orbison so much. Now, Guitar George also gave Tom some invaluable input on one of the song's key phrases. Initially, Petty had written, "I'm standing at the edge of the world" in the chorus for I Won't Back Down, as in, hey baby, I'm standing at the edge of the world. Now, never one to beat around the bush, George Harrison stopped the session and immediately he questioned the line, telling Petty it was crap, in so many words that is. George Harrison contended that there had to be something better than that line. Now, Tom Petty, like anyone, respected the opinion of his legendary friend and Traveling Wilburys bandmate. He eventually changed the lyric to "There ain't no easy way out," which I think is much better. With Harrison quickly nodding his approval when that happened. I love that. Guitar George, in all of his wisdom, he helped take the song just up a notch. Now, George was at that moment on top of the world yet again. He, after hitting #1 with the Beatles with Something, one of their best songs in the late 60s. Something in the way she woos me. Then he hit #1 twice in the 70s with My Sweet Lord and Gimme Love, Gimme Peace on Earth. Then he did it again in 1988 with Got My Mind Set on You. 3 straight decades with a #1 hit. I got my mind set on you. Now, the legend knew what he was talking about, and not only was George Harrison a healer through music, Petty recalled that he had a terrible cold on the day that they were going to record I Won't Back Down in the studio. And George kindly went to a nearby store and he bought a ginger root. He boiled it and he made Tom stick his head in the pot to get the ginger steam to open up his plugged sinuses. The natural remedy, it worked like a charm, and Tom's sinuses opened right up enough for him to run back into the studio and record the lead vocal.
That's right. I got just one line.
Dr. Harrison was a godsend for the fine-tuning and the recording of I Won't Back Down, as you see. And then there was the masterful Jeff Lynne, who actually became a bit of a mentor to Tom. Even though Petty had been singing and playing with superstar status for well over a decade at that point, he wasn't above learning some new tricks from Jeff Lynne about achieving the best harmonies and arranging music. Again, what separates the legends from the above average, always willing to learn. Petty called him a genius that made everything so easy for him in those critical sessions for his first solo record. Lynne also returned the favor, praising Petty. Jeff just gushed about Tom's distinctive singing, his voice, and he called him the coolest guy ever. One of my all-time dream interviews that never happened. Man, I love Tom Petty. Despite the incredible camaraderie in and out of the studio with Jeff Lynne, Mike Campbell, and George Harrison, and how smoothly the music came together, Tom Petty second-guessed himself. He worried that I Won't Back Down, was too simple and it might not work. He just felt that the song's lyrics were, perhaps too blunt, too direct, with no mystery, nothing to hide behind. Now, I agree with Tom's early assessment of I Won't Back Down. It's a simple mantra, but that is exactly what makes this song so powerful, so universal. I Won't Back Down, it hits your ears with a determined, unsophisticated mid-tempo rumble that just shakes and stirs your inhibitions, unleashing a fierce fighting spirit that must be reckoned with. I mean, hey baby, there ain't no easy way out. I won't back down. Hey, I will stand my ground and I won't back down. Simple, but so empowering.
Won't back down.
Of all the songs that Petty wrote, I Won't Back Down seemed to connect more directly with his multitude of devotees. Tom was constantly approached by his fans when they saw him in public, telling him stories of I Won't Back Down. How it gave them the strength to battle through the tough times. One of the stories that a fan revealed to him was how the song brought a girl out of a coma. I Won't Back Down was her favorite song, and when they played it in her hospital room, she came out of the coma. Girlfriend in a coma, just kidding. That story blew Tom's mind. He was so proud that one of his songs could actually save somebody's life. So I'm wondering, how has I Won't Back Down saved you? How has it inspired you in your life? Share that in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. This song was a revelation for me when I was growing up. I remember that there was this bully that used to make fun of me every single day since like 3rd grade. I wore glasses even back then, and just about every day he would call me Four Eyes, and whether he'd push me around or played keep away with my glasses, he would always find some way to break my glasses. Now, he was about 3 times bigger than me. I mean, his arm was the size of my head. I was afraid, and I never put up a fight. I remember my parents, they bought me these brand new glasses that were made of indestructible frames. I think it was like titanium. You could twist these things and pull, they wouldn't break. I wasn't telling my parents why I was always breaking my glasses. I was making up excuses because I was afraid. Well, guess what? He was able to annihilate my indestructible frames. So one day after another humiliating experience where my bully smacked me on the crotch and he belittled me in front of a bunch of cute girls, I remember my dad and I were at the store, and I had my allowance that was burning a hole in my pocket, and I wanted to soothe my aching pride with some hard rock. I had just seen my first concert, Poison and Tesla had opened for him, and they blew me away. So I was bound and determined to get their album, The Great Radio Controversy, on tape. And my dad bought Full Moon Fever, and we started to drive home, and I remember my dad popped in Tom Petty, and I was listening to Tesla on my Walkman. Lo and behold, about 3 minutes into my listening experience, my batteries to my Walkman up and died. I'd left my Walkman on the night before when I was listening in my sleep. I was pretty upset thinking about the bully and the stupid dead batteries. I wanted to hear this album, but all of a sudden, I Won't Back Down was on, and even though I'd heard it before on the radio, it just sounded different within the context of my plight in life at that time. Tom Petty's inspired lyrics had just lit a fuse within me, and all that pent-up frustration of taking this jerk's crap for years just came to a boiling point. Petty made me realize that I wasn't gonna back down ever again to this guy. I was gonna stand my ground, no matter the cost. So the next day I borrowed my dad's tape and I played the song, over and over again on the bus.
Will stand my ground.
And when the bully started razzing me, something inside of me just exploded. Like Ralphie in A Christmas Story.
Something had happened. A fuse blew, and I had gone out.
I grabbed him by his shirt and I just swung him as hard as I could into the lockers. Now, luckily, one of them was open and he hit him square in the side of the face. It just clobbered him. I remember I said something like, don't ever bother me again. I'm not putting up with your BS for one more second. I mean, I was pissed. I was livid. And then magically after that, a bunch of the kids at my junior high, they all of a sudden have the guts to back me up. They were saying things like, pick on someone your own size. You're a jerk. And he never bothered me again. In fact, we became friends. And, now I have Zenny glasses and I haven't broke any of those pairs, so I'm doing pretty good. I Won't Back Down opens with an assertive slide guitar riff that's played by Mike Campbell. Followed by a potent first verse where Tom Petty confidently declares, in a minor chord, "You can stand me up at the gates of hell."
You can stand me up at the gates of hell.
But I won't back down, and I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground, and I won't back down.
From dragging me down, gonna stand my ground.
The track then dramatically shifts to the chorus in a major chord, and the chord change lifts that track up with the euphoria of a beating back your detractors, defeating the bully. That clever transition is the Jeff Lynne factor that decisively put Petty's I Won't Back Down, the battle cry, into an elite list of timeless rock anthems. I mean, it's no wonder that I Won't Back Down has been used to invigorate the human spirit, especially in the face of tragedy. Following the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001, Tom Petty performed a rousing rendition of I Won't Back Down on a nationally broadcasted America Tribute to Heroes telethon to benefit thousands of people who were the victims of that horrible attack. It was the perfect song to heal, to unite, and to inspire, as Tom Petty's performance was viewed by more than 60 million people around the nation.
And I won't back down.
After Tom Petty, who was born in Gainesville, Florida, died unexpectedly, tragically, on October 3rd, 2017, the University of Florida Gators honored their hometown rock and roll hero during the next home football game the following Saturday by playing I Won't Back Down between the third and fourth quarters, immediately after the traditional university song, We Are the Boys from Old Florida. I Won't Back Down, it's been played during the portion of that game at every subsequent Gator home contest, with the massive crowd singing along, holding up their cell phones to fill the stadium with lights. Just a truly inspiring tribute to one of my greatest musical heroes. Something that my dad and I shared together. I Won't Back Down was #1 for 5 weeks on the mainstream rock chart in 1989, to #5 in Canada, #26 in England. The song peaked at #12 on the Billboard Hot 100, but its ultimate impact cannot be weighed on the chart trade publication. It's undoubtedly apparent in the lives that have been changed by the power of this undeniable mantra. It'll continue to inspire every listener to stand up to the gates of hell and to never back down. God bless you, Tom Petty. We hear you. Always. Leave us a comment about this inspirational hit of 1989. What memory or experience do you have with this song or the great Tom Petty? Share in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If you like this video, we do invite you to subscribe right now. Be a part of this community. Also, we invite you to check us out on Patreon. Give it a look. Help us keep the music alive. It's so important. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. You can get this shirt in the links below. Support the great Tom Petty.